Welcome to Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We talk race reviews, news from the paddock, and bring you everything from the world of Formula One. And now your hosts, Drew, Walker, Ed, and Tomas.
Welcome back to Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula One podcast. I'm here with my boy, Thomas and Eddie, and we are here to recap the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And let's start off with a couple of quick fact checks. Last week, Thomas and I did a quick little intro to F1 in Vegas, and we didn't know what was going to be going on in terms of longevity in Formula One in Vegas, but what we figured out was F1 in Las Vegas has signed a 10-year deal, and the paddock that they built there is purpose-built, and it's going to be there for quite some time. So that being said, let's correct that right now, and we'll go from there. Let's just do a quick recap. What did you think of the race? What went on? And we'll get into some nitty-gritty details a little bit later, but let's just do a quick overview. What do you got for me, Ed?
Interesting race. The track in itself was fairly new. Looked like a pig, the layout, but America. The surface was very, very interesting in a sense that it almost killed one of the drivers, Lando Norris. Created a turn one debacle between everyone else, including our very favorite Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, which I will get into it a little bit also, that he's done this before and making it sound like he's the victim again, but he's not. He's done it before, and I'm talking about 2021 all over again. Yes, that's sore spot for me between Max and Lewis. But from a standpoint of the area in itself, besides the manhole covers, I think it was a good race. Good, interesting time, and looking forward to see what happens the next few years. How about you, Thomas?
I don't know. I had mixed feelings in regards to this race. I thought it was going to be like when me and Drew and everyone thought it was going to be a big shit show or a big success. I thought it was an okay race. Nothing too special stood out to me. You know, I'm glad Lando Norris is okay. Am I looking forward to the next 9 or 10 years of this race? Not really. No, it's nothing special in my eyes. One thing that I did really notice from me personally is, especially with this race, how much I hate night races in general, and to me it loses a lot of the entertainment value. That's true to me personally, but it was an okay race overall. The practice sessions were terrible, and I would like to talk about those a little bit later on as well and what's going on, but that's what I got, Drew.
You are the harshest critic, dude. I don't know if I think there's been one or two races that we've covered in the whole year that you were even almost okay with. You just have the biggest shit talking of all. Yes, is there criticisms to Vegas? 1,000%. We will get into those. But in my opinion, it surprised me in the best ways. I was entertained the entire race. I had a feeling that something was going to go a little wonky in the first corner, cold tires, new tarmac, the whole things that we talked about on the last episode. But as far as I was concerned, it was an entertaining race. There was great overtaking. There was lots of back and forth with the drivers, drivers that fell to the bottom of the grid really early because of the whole Aston Martin Fernando Alonso spin out at the beginning and a couple of the other incidents that happened. It was entertaining to watch them, kind of get through the pack. And I don't know if it was the track or if the drivers are just kind of giving up on everything because it's the end of the year. But that all being said, man, I was wildly entertained the whole race. And I didn't subscribe to that whole intro thing and all that kind of stuff. It was actually cool to see Tiesto, but the rest of it I couldn't have dealt without. But with that all being said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to it. I think this was shaking off a lot of the cobwebs for that first race. I think next year it'll be a lot more smooth. There'll be a lot better preparation in terms of like what they need to do, how things need to get built out. There'll be a lot of expectations set this year in terms of like, you know, the people that live, like the residents in Vegas, the employees that work in Vegas, they'll understand like what this is. It's just like Montreal, you know what I mean? Like everyone who lives in Montreal near the track, like they know, okay, it's F1 week, you know what I mean? And they just like, they know it's going to be a shit show, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. And I just think there's a big learning curve, and this was this year's learning curve, you know, but let's get into a couple of the points that we wanted to cover. Ed, you wanted to bring up, or was it Thomas? Thomas, you wanted to talk about what went on in into FP1, and I think that that's a very valid point because I think it was an explosive FP1 to say the least. So whoever wants to rattle on about that, let's go.
Just not too much to say. Just with the whole cover and damage and penalty that Mr. Ferrari got again. Such shitty luck, and I feel bad for Carlos Sainz. Feel really bad for the guy, and they were arguing that they shouldn't be penalized for that, and back and forth. And I'm pretty sure, you know, we talked over Discord on this. FIA unfortunately couldn't do anything because it just opens up a massive shit show storm. You know, every other team could use that same excuse. You know, track was that or that was this. So I get why they did that. I still don't really think that was the right call, but I get it. In regards to practice sessions, just how short cut they were. Because of this, I find it funny. There's also a lawsuit going on. I'm not too sure if you guys heard that the fans are suing F1 or Liberty Media basically because they missed out. They only got like 8 minutes of FP1, and they want some sort of compensation. And they're giving some sort of compensation to people that had like the Thursday or Friday, Thursday tickets, like 200 voucher. But if you had the whole weekend back, apparently you're not getting anything as of yet. So I find that interesting. That's going to be fun to watch it play out. But yeah, practice, total shit show. Hopefully, you know, next year we don't see that. Everything goes out smoothly. Ed?
I mean, it was expected there was going to be some type of a hiccup, but not to the extent of a hiccup destroying an entire car. Like Carlos Sainz's floor was done for. Even he felt even his chair was broken. His actual seat was broken. So his transmission was broken. I think in terms of making changes, I mean the FIA is right. They can't make race results be changed. However, I think according to the race, Fred Vasseur is actually reaching out to Liberty Media and to the FIA and all governing bodies that are going to be making decisions on this. With regards to financial implications to the team, because not only are they losing money in terms of having a new chassis, a new floor, a new seat, it's the spare parts that they have. Yes, it is second to the last race of the year, but still, with the amount of budget that they have been capped for this year and could also be for next year, I mean, this will probably be more towards a decision outside of the actual race instead of within the race in itself. But yeah, I mean, I was expecting that. And then to all those people who are complaining about they missed free practice, no one watches free practice. Come on. Just because it was the first time in the US, typical Americans complaining about the most mundane shit. Like, just come on. If you guys are real fans, stay away from our sport. We don't need your trash, please. Go away. Drew?
All right, I think you got shafted. The reality is, like, it's a racing sport. Things are going to happen. Luck goes both ways. You know what I mean? Like, we got luck that goes in the favor for people, and we got luck that just absolutely bends you over without even the courtesy of spitting on it. You know what I mean? And the reality is that, like, yeah, Carlos got banged up, and do I think Ferrari took a big hit in terms of like monetary? Yeah, 100%, absolutely. But in terms of like the race, you know, like Thomas had mentioned, and we spoke about it in the Discord, like the reality is that like if you say like, oh, you know, extenuating circumstances because of the track or this or that, like the reality is like it would just open up a floodgate of everyone coming up with any extenuating circumstances anytime anything happens in FP1 or whatever the case may be. It sets the wrong precedent. So I get it. Unfortunately, Carlos just happened to take this one. And it was actually really nice to see Toto Wolff, which is like a competing team, kind of just like he defended Las Vegas in its entirety and just kind of said, like, listen, like, this isn't the first time, a manhole cover, a cover on any sort of street circuits popped off, but like, this has happened before. It is what it is. And like, by saying this whole Las Vegas race is an absolute shit show because of one incident in FP1, like, it is what it is. If it was raining and it got rained out, would anyone be mad? It is what it is. Reality. Like, it's a sport, and like, this shit happens. Like, life happens. So I thought that was kind of nice to see Toto kind of stick up for the people of Las Vegas and all the people that, put in some serious sweat equity to put on that race for everybody. And I think that that was pretty stand up for him. Okay, I want to get into some of the gritty stuff right now because we're going to have to keep this a little bit of a shorter episode. But going into the final race of the season, we got a serious Constructors Championship fight going on. Clearly not for the win because that already happened, but for second between Mercedes and Ferrari, and third between McLaren and Aston Martin. And then we got the seventh battle between Alpha Tauri and Williams. So I wanted to ask you boys, let's go real quick. So is Mercedes Ferrari, McLaren Aston Martin, or Williams Alpha Tauri? What do we got for those? Eddie, what do you got first, buddy?
I'm going to stand on Mercedes winning the second spot. But Ferrari has had a strong showing the past few races. Leclerc being like the last lap, last corner hero that he was in Las Vegas. So who knows what could happen on that end. And the amount of the difference between the two is not that significant that it could go either way, but I'm going for Mercedes on this one. I don't think Toto Wolff is going to allow that to happen for Ferrari to take that away from him.
Okay, well, what about McLaren and Aston Martin?
Yeah, I'm McLaren all the way.
Okay.
McLaren,
okay, I like it.
Just because I don't like Stroll.
So your hate for Stroll is enough to overpower your logic and reason. And I'm not mad. I actually agree with you. I actually think that that's going to happen. But is it because you don't like Stroll as a person, or you just think he's a garbage driver?
No, he's a garbage driver.
Careful. We're still looking for a sponsorship, so careful.
I don't care. They can sponsor the rest of the team. I don't have to be there. If Stroll's going to be the sponsor, I don't want to be there. Because, Alonso has been carrying the entire team on his back for the entire season. He probably would need disc repair or back surgery after this entire season.
I agree with you. I don't disagree. I think that you're 100% bang on with that, dude. I think that that Aston Martin has been a one-car constructor this year, and that's 100%. Tough. What do you got 100%. Between Alpha Tauri and Williams? What do you think is going to happen? I know that it's ultimately at the bottom of the barrel, but to be honest, that's a few $1 million that can go a long way for those boys. What do you think we got going on here?
Sorry, you cut out for a quick second. I didn't catch everything you said.
Yeah. Between Alpha Tauri and Williams, who do you think you got for seventh place?
I would say Alpha Tauri. Reason behind it's hammer time between Yuki and Danny Rick to see who's going to take the second seat in RB for 2024. If Sergio Perez gets the boot, or 2025. They're now trying to show they now have to create that really strong campaign. Who's going to take that seat after Checo leaves that seat?
Okay, fair enough. Thomas, same questions, same teams. Who do you got, buddy?
The first one is tough as shit. I really, really want it to be Ferrari, but I think I'm going to go on Ed with this one. I think it's going to be Merc, just because I think it's going to be Merc. We're just going to leave it at that. I think George Russell and Hamilton, they have a little bit more pace, a little bit more skill, and I think they're going to get this one. Second one, what is this? AMR and McLaren, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to say I really want to say Aston Martin, but I'm going to say McLaren. Again, same reason as Ed, but Yeah, basically same reason as that. Fernando's been carrying the whole team, and I really don't think they're gonna win fourth, or third or whatever.
Third.
Yeah. Third. Okay, third. Yeah, so I really don't think that. So I
No,
think
fourth. It would be fourth. You're right. It's fourth.
yeah,
Just for
fourth.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with McLaren on that one, and basically the same answers as Ed. Alpha Tauri as well, because Kenny Rick and Yuki Tsunoda, they're been killing it. Williams had quite a few good races, but Mr. Logan Sargent, man, I'm sorry, you're kind of shit, and you need to step up, bud.
Okay, I don't hate your answers, but I have to say that like Williams, it was really nice to see them killing it because like Logan Sargent getting some points.
Yes.
His home race. Well, a home race. He's got 3 home races. I think it's a bunch of bullshit as far as I'm concerned. But let's start at the top. Mercedes or Ferrari? What do I think about Mercedes or Ferrari? Okay, I'm a Mercedes fanboy through and through, but realistically, like, man, they've been not like Mercedes has not been looking nice. Like qualities, like Louis out in Q2, like what's happening right now? You know what I mean? And then like George Russell, he had to make his way through the pack, pulled up a 5-second penalty, got himself in a little bit of shit, and that dropped him down from 4th to 8th behind Hamilton and 7th. You know what I mean? Like these are driver errors. Like these are their problems. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna say Mercedes because I love them, but like those Ferraris have been consistent. Like obviously with bullshit aside, they've looked nice the last few races. You know what I mean? And they've really they've turned this championship into a little bit of a race because it was usually one or the other. And now they're starting to both kind of pair up, and Mercedes is falling into that one or the other category. But between Aston Martin and McLaren, I'm going to have to go McLaren because they're fighting with 2 cars. Like let's take Las Vegas out of it. Like, Lance Stroll has not been looking the best. Actually, let's take Las Vegas and Sao Paulo out of it. But like, as you take an average of the season, I would say that like, that's even tough to say, man. Because now that I'm even thinking about it, like McLaren, their whole first half of the season was garbage. You know what I mean? It's like if you're taking average of the season, I'd probably go with Aston Martin, especially with the way that the boys are looking. These are tough. Man, it's a lot easier asking these questions than it is answering them. Jesus. Okay, so let's go Mercedes in the first one. I'm going to go McLaren in the second one, and I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I think that Alpha Tauri is going to do it because I don't think the one driver, Albon's actually the one carrying that team, just like Fernando's carrying Aston Martin. I think when you have 2 horses in the race, it just doubles your chances of getting these like very, very important points going into the last race. So that's what I got going on there. Now, in terms of like the actual race itself, like, do you think that little incident between George Russell and Max Verstappen, do you think that was George Russell's fault? Like, he got the 5-second grid penalty, but like, do you actually think that like, if it was me, I probably would have done the same thing. Like Max wasn't in his rearview mirror when he looked behind, and then all of a sudden it was like, bro, he turned into that corner and Max was like gunning up the side there. So like, what are your thoughts on that, Thomas?
Tough. I think it was honestly, I would put it as a racing incident. I think they're both a little bit at fault. Sorry, I'm blanking out right now. That Max got that penalty. I don't know. I'm torn. I think it was honestly a racing incident. I don't see both parties are in the wrong and both parties in the right. That's where I stand.
Okay. And what do you think about Max's penalty? Do you think Max's penalty was worth it? Like, do you think the 5 seconds that he got for that was like, to me personally, I don't think it was a penal, like a big enough penalty in order for him. Like, he wasn't even worried about it. He was like, cool, give me a 5-second penalty. Give me a 10-second penalty. I don't even care. Unless it was a 30-second penalty, like, I actually don't think it would have mattered to him in the slightest.
With that, I totally agree. The 5-second penalty, it was, it didn't mean jack. It could have been, a 10-second penalty. That still wouldn't mean jack. 15, 20 second, okay, now we're talking, but they obviously can't really apply that. But like I said, like we all know this, 5 seconds to Max is literally nothing. And almost, I think someone on the Discord, or I saw it somewhere online, that they're talking about, or fans are talking about, there should be a little bit stiffer penalties, because for drivers like Max, again, that penalty means jack.
All right. Now, Ed, same question. I'm going to ask it to you. Do you think that George Russell was really at fault when it came to that penalty?
Nope. 100% no. Based on racecraft, and I know a lot of different pundits are probably going to be crucifying me for this, for me butchering this, but entering that corner before the apex, if your front axle is in front of the other driver, then that's your corner. George was ahead of Max, so he dive bombed that corner. Yes, he deserved to get hit because that was George's corner. At the end of the
I'm
day,
with you 1,000%.
regardless
1,000%
if he
I'm with
wasn't looking at another driver beside him when he would take the corner, that's not his problem. His front axle was ahead before the apex. That's his corner. So regardless what happens, that's his corner. So him getting that penalty is absolute BS. That's the Max Verstappen effect. It happened before in the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, wherein Max was supposed to be giving that same incident with Max and Lewis, and I'm alluding towards Max's penalty as well, wherein he was supposed to give the place back. He was sort of giving the place back, but he was in the middle of the track, and what ended up happening? Lewis ended up hitting Max's rear and losing the end plates of his front wing. So I'm like, really, at the end of the day, like it's Max getting this I don't know, this halo effect that since he's the champion and he's like the leading driver right now, they give him a little bit more reprieve, but we'll see what happens next year. If things do change.
I think you're right on that. Like, I think that most of the greats in any sport gets a little bit of leeway. You know what I mean? Like when Hamilton was running amok for that, and when Schumacher, like I think most of, even in other sports, you know what I mean? Like when Wayne Gretzky was playing hockey, like he wasn't a big guy. He wasn't a very physical guy. And like other guys that, especially during the 80s and 90s, when he was, really into hockey and doing great things, people would give him like a version of respect. Penalties would get called on him that wouldn't get called on anyone else. And so like, I think there's a reality and a respect level to someone like Max Verstappen, but like, I think at this point in time in the season, especially like the championship's over, like you already got the W, bro. The, Red Bulls already copped the W. Like the reality is that like, you need to play nicey nice. And like, I had higher hopes for Max Verstappen this year because at the beginning he was starting to look very respectful. And you know what I want to add too, that Max also kind of jumped in at the end of this race and kind of gave a little bit of leeway in terms of like helping out Checo, because Checo was right behind Charles, and he was trying to give him a little bit of runway in terms of being close enough to catch that DRS. And so like Max actually backed off. Like he tried to he got it within like 2.5 seconds, not to give him DRS, sorry, to give him a slipstream at the end so that he could pull away from Charles. And obviously it didn't end up working because Max didn't want to jeopardize the W for him. But the reality is that like, he did end up helping him out. And like, I thought that was more than I would ever see out of Max. So I don't want to completely shit on him, but like ultimately, like I think, Max just has the racing brain. He just wants to win. And like once the car is on track and those crash helmets go on, like he's just an animal, dude, through and through.
Oh no, yeah.
Did you have any? Yeah. Did you have any other comments that you wanted to bring up about the Las Vegas Grand Prix that like we haven't touched on yet that like stood out to you? Like there was a lot of great driving. Like who would you put for driver? Like honestly, I just felt the worst I felt for Lando. Like he just got absolutely like. Whatever happened there was a couple skips, jumps, and like, they were racing on a full fuel load, and all of a sudden this dude's in the wall at a high speed. And like, Thomas said, thank God that he's doing okay. But yeah, there's a little bit of learning curve for the track. You know, the guys didn't have a ton of experience on track, especially with a full fuel load. So like there was bits and pieces of that. Could it have been prevented? Maybe. I think just, some more time and experience around that track would have definitely helped. But, the reality is it's a new course. It was new for everybody. Everyone went in with the same, blinders on. But yeah, what do you got, Ed?
I mean, it goes both ways, really. The track build in itself, like the facilities, it was really customer specific. Like they wanted everyone to have that like fantastic experience of Formula One, and still having it be in in a city track and whatnot. Kudos to the designer of the facilities. The track in itself, I mean, it's a typical city track. And you get what you get. In terms of the grippiness of the actual course, again, same thing. It's a road that's being used on a daily basis. You can never really get that like really good contact surface. Singapore has that issue. Monaco has that issue. It's and even Baku has that issue too, even if they have like those like really long straights. Same thing with Las Vegas, had those really long straights. They're just trying to find ways for the sport to be a little bit more exciting and not just a procession of cars. And coming from what had happened in the 80s, wherein they had a racetrack in a parking lot, and the amount of people that actually came out, and F1 as a company, like they lost so much money when they had that track back in the 80s in Las Vegas. So from that, in comparison to what we have now in 2023, big difference, lots of spectacle. I do see the point of Max Verstappen complaining. There's so much there's so much additional stuff that they had to do. All he wants is to race, but that's from his point of view. From Liberty Media's point of view, and from our point of view as like big fans, we want this thing to kind of like expand a little bit more, so it becomes more interesting. It becomes a sport that could be followed by everyone else, and who knows, maybe may grow even into something of a spectacle like the UFC in the US, and F1 could do that. Who knows? But either which way, Liberty Media is doing really well in terms of being able to market this sport to people who actually have no idea what this is. And kudos to them for bringing it to Las Vegas. And we'll see what the next 10 years are going to be like.
For sure. I'd actually be curious to see what that F1 paddock is going to look like the other 360 odd days of the year where it's not being used as an F1 track. Like, I think, that I would love to see it. Like, I'm a big fan of Vegas myself personally, and like, I don't drink or gamble. So as far as I'm concerned, Vegas is like, it's all about the show, what's going on, the hotels, the shopping, the experiences, and F1 is a huge thing for me. Obviously, you run an F1 podcast. I love this stuff. I'd be so curious to see like if they turn it into like an F1 like attraction, like a museum, or like not what like a something to go do. Like Canada's Wonderland, but for F1. Like I think it'd be sick. Like have some simulators in there and some restaurants with like all that kind of stuff. I think it'd be dope. I think it'd be a really cool idea.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
That it would be an experience. It's not doing anything for the rest of the year. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It makes no sense to just leave this paddock empty for no reason. Like put a couple of the W11 cars in there, whatever they got going on, and just have people come in and poke around and take photos and stuff. I'd be into that. I'd spend some money on doing that.
I'm with you there.
Okay, right. Let's do it. Maybe we'll go to Vegas next year. Fuck it, boys. Let's do it. Let's finish it up. Let's take a little quick trip to the final race of the season. I'd love to do a review and a final season ender episode with you guys. But first, I want to ask you, Eddie, about Abu Dhabi. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions? How do you feel about this track in the calendar? And how do you feel about it being the last track in the calendar? And let's end that with, let's end it up with a bang. So what do you got on this one, Eddie?
Well, you know how I feel about Abu Dhabi in the Yas Marina track from 2021. You already know that. I don't even know why you're asking this question at this point. But you know what?
Because I wanted it to trigger you.
I knew. All right. Well, at the end of the day, this last race for me, I'm not looking at Max Verstappen. He's definitely going to win this. What I'm looking at right now is what is Ferrari going to do? What is Mercedes going to do? And what is McLaren going to do? These three teams are the ones that have been showing up and trying to develop their cars, trying to develop their drivers, trying to develop their strategies to see if they can take it to Red Bull. So the last race will kind of like define how things are going to be in the new year, or the next season. The other teams like Williams, Alpha Tauri, the back marker teams, um, and who knows what happens to Andretti? Who knows if we have another works team coming in with Audi? At the end of the day, these are just developmental. I'm looking at what the top four or top three teams besides Red Bull, how are they going to show up? Because at this point in time, as you said earlier, Mercedes not so great, Ferrari, but McLaren, um, they've shown up, and we'll see if they will really stick to their guns and saying that they are going to take it to Red Bull next season. If they're going to, stand on their word, or it's just all lip service.
I think based on their trajectory for this last, let's call it 5-6 races of the season, I think they're on point. Like, if they do a lot of work in the off season, but that's the thing. What everyone has to remember is that, like, as soon as McLaren has some time off and they're doing like work in the off season, so's Red Bull, so's Mercedes, so's Ferrari. And if you haven't caught that Braun documentary docuseries or whatever, that have you seen that yet on Disney Plus?
Oh yeah, 100%. The moment it came out, I watched all of it.
Loved it, dude. My respect level for Ross Braun and what's Pretty Boy's name? Oh, Jensen Button. Dude, my respect level for those guys, and not Fittipaldi. What's the guy's name?
Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, Barrichello. Yeah, Barrichello. But this was before me. Like, I didn't get to see these guys drive. It was just before I got into racing, like maybe 2 years before I got. But like, I would have loved to have seen this. The respect level I have for these guys is bananas. I thought it was a super well done documentary, and I think that it just kind of showed you that, like, having one little advantage and one perspective on what the regulations are and how they can, manipulate the rules into serving their car the best. Dude, when they had that like ground or the double spoiler, whatever their little trick was that Braun had over diffuser. Everybody else. The double diffuser. That's what it was. Dude, that's all you need. But like, all you have to have is like one of these teams, like a McLaren or an Aston Martin or Mercedes, whoever it is. Once they find this little secret formula that nobody else has, dude, you can run away with it. It's what Red Bull has right now. They have some secret sauce that nobody knows about, and they're absolutely running away with it. But I digress. I'm going to get back on point. Oh, sorry. Yeah, rock on. What do you got?
No. So this is where I'm going to kind of like foreshadow on what happened with Braun and kind of like connect it to what Red Bull is possibly doing. And as you said, remember, Red Bull did not do any type of advancement or updates to their vehicle this year. Christian Horner said that what they've been doing this entire year off-site is developing their car for next year. So they had a full year of development, which Braun had.
This is what I'm getting at.
Yes, exactly.
This is what I'm saying. So, like, you got your McLarens that are like, oh, we're catching Red Bull. We're gunning for Red Bull. Bro, everyone's gunning for Red Bull. Haas is gunning. Everyone's gunning for Red Bull. Like, what are you saying right now? But the reality is like, dude, they've been on this for the whole year. After, like, I don't even know. After Miami, Baku, they were like, okay, we got this season in the bag. We're double downing on 2024's car. Like, why are we even bothering sticking to this? I'm sure they're into 2025 for the new reg changes. Like, they're miles ahead of everybody else because they didn't even have to worry about this season. McLaren spent the first half of the season worrying about the last half of the season. Where Red Bull had the first or the last 3 quarters of the season to worry about next year. Right. And so that kind of just like, I would love to see it because, like, would I love Red Bull to get pulled back into that pack a little more? For sure. But, like, I think the reality is for F1, it is that, like, we're just going to have to wait for a regs change unless they can pull a rabbit out of the hat. In terms of Abu Dhabi, let's get back on track. Although that was a very nice point that we brought out and a really nice tangent we went on. I appreciate that.
Love it.
But Abu Dhabi, the Yachts Marina circuit, man, I really like this track. I love playing it on F1. Like, I'm a big fan of this track. It's a lot of fun, and I think the drivers like it. I know you have some, like, you know, PTSD when it comes to Abu Dhabi, and like I do too. Obviously, watching that get ripped away from Lewis in the last lap of the last race on some bullshit call, you know, that no Mikey no thing. This isn't right, like, bro. Like, that to me was like, it was the first time that I was standing in front of my TV watching a sport screaming at it. And so as much as I was unhappy with the result, which is the truth, I was radically unhappy. And, you know, even getting into the sport much further thereafter until now, I think that it was a bullshit call. And like how that was all done was just an absolute clown show. But it was entertaining to the max. Yes. And so, like, I have good associations tied to it. And like the result is not what I wanted, but like the excitement was there. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to find that secret sauce of like that perfect storm in terms of like, you know, it'll come down to the last lap on the last race of the, you know, the drivers' championship separated by 1 point. Like that will never, well, may not, it's not happening for quite some time. And so, you know, going into this race, I would love to have that energy and excitement as I did in 2021. But the reality is it's not going to happen. And that's fine. I'm accepting that. It is what it is. But I like the track. I like the circuit. I'm looking forward to it. I think that all the teams are going to go into this with a winning attitude because there is a lot on the line in terms of millions and millions and millions of dollars for some of these teams eking out other teams by like 1 point. So like, it is what it is. Let's fucking go. I'm down with it all the way. But I do have to wrap up this podcast. It was nice to see you, Eddie.
Likewise, Drew. Likewise. Yes, I am back. Buddy. I am back.
It was nice. Our homeboy Thomas in Lithuania, I don't even know what happened to him. He disappeared.
Went back to his bunker.
The episode, dude. He went back to the bunker. The internet connection cut out. I don't expect anything better. It is what it is. But we love you, Thomas, just the same. I know he's probably freaking out in the Discord saying all these 4-letter words that I can't mention on this fucking podcast. But the reality is, you know, we miss Walker, we miss Thomas, and we really appreciate you guys listening. We're really excited for the last few episodes of the season coming up. But yes, here's the plugs. Listen, like, subscribe, you know, hit the fucking Discord up, man. You know what it is. If you're listening to this, give us a 5-star review. Anything that you could do to kind of push this podcast out there to anyone would be greatly appreciated. My name's Drew. We got my homeboy Eddie here. Thomas was here, and Walker's working or whatever. He's paying his bills. Bless his heart.
Wherever he is.
But wherever he is, man, we love him just the same. This is Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.
The Canadian Formula One podcast. We talk race reviews, news from the paddock, and bring you everything from the world of Formula One. And now your hosts, Drew, Walker, Ed, and Tomas.